Imagine this, a narrow mountain pass flanked by jagged cliffs on one side and crashing waves on the other. The year is 480 BCE, and here, at a place called Thermopylae, known as the Hot Gates, a small group of warriors prepares to face an army so vast it seems to blot out the horizon. This isn't just any battle, it's a clash between two worlds. On one side stands Xerxes, ruler of the mighty Persian Empire, commanding hundreds of thousands of soldiers drawn from every corner of his dominion. On the other are fewer than 7,000 Greeks, led by 300 elite Spartans under King Leonidas. For 3 days, they would hold the line against impossible odds. Their stand would not stop the invasion, but it would spark a legend, a story of sacrifice, defiance, and the unshakable belief that some causes are worth dying for. Today, we're diving deep into the events of Thermopylae, exploring why these warriors chose to fight, how they managed to resist such overwhelming numbers, and what their legacy means for us today. Buckle up, it's going to be an epic ride. Picture the scene. The air is thick with tension, sweat drips down helmets as the Greek hoplites adjust their grips on spears and shields. Behind them lies all they hold dear, their families, their freedom, their way of life. Ahead, stretching endlessly across the landscape, comes the relentless tide of Persia. Banners snap in the wind, armor glints in the sunlight, and the ground trembles beneath the weight of marching feet. This isn't just a military confrontation, it's a collision of ideologies. Freedom versus tyranny, unity versus submission, courage versus fear. We'll explore how this moment became etched into history, not just because of its scale or outcome, but because of the sheer audacity of those who stood against the storm. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand why Thermopylae remains one of history's most enduring symbols of heroism. To truly grasp the significance of Thermopylae, we need to step back and take in the bigger picture. In 480 BCE, the ancient world was divided between two vastly different civilizations. To the east lay Persia, an empire spanning continents, encompassing modern-day Turkey, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, parts of India, and beyond. At its heart sat Persepolis, the jewel of Xerxes' realm, where golden palaces rose like dreams carved from stone. Persia wasn't merely a collection of territory, it was a cosmopolitan superpower, home to dozens of languages, religions, and cultures, all bound together by the authority of one man, Xerxes the King. Xerxes inherited not only his father Darius's throne, but also his ambition and his grudge against Greece. 10 years earlier, Athens had dared to support a revolt in Ionia, a region under Persian control. In retaliation, Darius sent an expedition to punish the Athenians. But instead of crushing them, the Persians suffered a humiliating defeat at Marathon, where a smaller Greek force routed their army. For Persia, a power accustomed to bending nations to its will, this loss was unbearable. It demanded retribution. When Darius died before he could exact revenge, Xerxes vowed to finish what his father started. He didn't plan a mere punitive raid. No, this time he aimed to conquer Greece entirely, to erase its independence and replace it with subservience to the great king. To achieve this, he assembled an army unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. Herodotus, our primary source for these events, claimed it numbered over 1 million men. While modern historians debate the figure, even conservative estimates suggest around 150,000 combatants, an astronomical number for its time. But let's pause here and consider the logistics of such an undertaking. Imagine feeding, equipping, and transporting tens of thousands of soldiers across hundreds of miles. Picture the supply lines snaking through mountains and deserts, the ships ferrying provisions along the coast. This wasn't just an invasion, it was a logistical marvel, a testament to the organizational might of the Persian Empire. And yet, despite its size, this army wasn't invincible. Its strength lay in numbers, yes, but also in diversity. Troops came from across the empire, Medes and Immortals from Persia proper, Assyrians wielding recurve bows, Egyptians skilled in naval warfare, Scythian horsemen, Indian charioteers. Each unit brought its own strengths and weaknesses. Meanwhile, in Greece, alarm bells were ringing. The fragmented city-states realized they couldn't face Persia alone. For once, they set aside their rivalries and formed the Hellenic League, pledging mutual defense. Sparta, renowned for its military might, took command of the land forces. Athens, master of the seas, led the naval effort, and so a plan was born. Use Greece's rugged terrain to neutralize Persia's numerical advantage. One key choke point, Thermopylae. Why Thermopylae? Geography played a starring role. Nestled between towering mountains and the Malian Gulf, the pass was barely wide enough for a chariot to squeeze through in places. Here, even the largest army in the world could be held at bay by a much smaller force. It was the perfect bottleneck, a outside, natural fortress waiting to be defended. But there was more to Thermopylae than geography. Historically, it had been a strategic location for centuries, guarding access to central Greece. Control of the pass meant controlling movement between northern and southern regions. During peacetime, it served as a hub for trade routes. In wartime, it became a vital defensive position. The Greeks knew this instinctively. They understood understood that if they could hold Thermopylae long enough, they could buy precious time for their fleets to assemble and for reinforcements to arrive. However, timing was critical. Sparta's religious festival, the Carneia, forbade full-scale warfare until it concluded. Time was running out. Delaying meant letting the Persians waltz unopposed into central Greece. So King Leonidas made a bold decision. He'd lead a personal guard of 300 elite Spartans, chosen veterans, fathers of living sons, to Thermopylae. They wouldn't be alone. Thousands of allied troops joined them: Thespians, Thebans, Phocians, and others. All told, around 7,000 Greeks stood ready to meet the storm. Leonidas's column marched north, villages emptying as people lined the roads to watch. "The Spartans are going to the hot gates," whispers spread like wildfire. It wasn't just a march, it was a message. If Sparta was willing to send her king to the front with only a token force, then the stakes were clear. This wasn't just about survival, it was about honor, freedom, and proving that no empire was invincible. When they arrived, the scene was stark. Behind them lay fertile plains. Ahead stretched the narrow pass. Beyond that, the advancing Persian horde. Leonidas ordered fortifications strengthened, using old Phocian walls reinforced with timber and stone. Then they waited. The countdown had begun. Let's take a moment to appreciate the mindset of these men. Spartans weren't just soldiers, they were bred for war. From birth, boys underwent rigorous training designed to produce fearless warriors. Weakness was culled early. Only the strongest survived. By adulthood, Spartans were conditioned to prioritize duty above all else, even personal safety. To them, retreat was unthinkable. Death on the battlefield, especially in defense of their homeland, was the ultimate honor. This ethos shaped everything. About the Spartans' approach to Thermopylae, they didn't expect to win, they expected to delay. Every hour they held the pass bought Greece more time to prepare for the larger conflict ahead. That willingness to embrace certain death speaks volumes about their values and their determination to protect their way of life. Day 1, the first clash. Dawn broke hot and humid over Thermopylae. Mist rose from sulfur springs, giving the battlefield an eerie glow. The Greeks stood shield to shield in tight formation, the Phalanx, spears angled forward, bronze helmets gleaming in the sunlight. Silence reigned, broken only by the sound of breathing and the occasional creak of leather armor. Then came the noise, faint at first, growing louder until it filled the air, a deafening roar of marching feet, clanging weapons, and blaring war horns. Out of the haze emerged the vanguard of Xerxes' army. At first glance, it seemed less intimidating. Medes and Scythians, armed with wicker shields and curved swords, surged forward confident. Surely, they thought, this tiny Greek force would crumble. Boy, were they wrong. As the Persians slammed into the Greek line, they encountered something unexpected, an immovable wall of steel and determination. Each hoplite's shield overlapped his neighbor's, forming an unbroken barrier. From behind this shield wall, spears thrust forward in deadly harmony. The narrow pass negated the Persians' superior numbers. There was nowhere to flank, no room to maneuver. Every charge ended the same way, with bodies piling up at the Greeks' feet. Hours passed. Wave after wave crashed against the Phalanx, but nothing broke. Frustrated, Xerxes deployed his immortals, his crack troops, named because their ranks were always replenished to maintain exactly 10,000 men. Clad in glittering armor, wielding long spears and bows, they advanced with precision. Surely this elite unit would turn the tide. They didn't. The same factors that stymied the earlier assaults worked against the immortals. Their spears snapped against Greek shields. Their arrows glanced off bronze. Worse, the Spartans used clever tactics, feigning retreats to lure the Persians in before counterattacking viciously. By sunset, the ground before the Greek line was littered with corpses. The Persians withdrew, licking their wound. Day 1 belonged to the Greeks. What made the Phalanx so effective? Unlike the loose formations favored by many armies of the era, the Greek Phalanx operated as a single, cohesive unit. Each man relied on his neighbor to cover his flank, creating a seamless line of defense. Spears extended outward, presenting multiple layers of sharp points for enemies to contend with. Even the weakest fighter benefited from the collective strength of the formation. Meanwhile, rotation ensured fresh fighters constantly replaced exhausted ones, a tactic unfamiliar to the Persian, who fought until they dropped from fatigue. For Xerxes, watching from his hilltop perch, the day's failure must have been infuriating. How could such a small force repeatedly repel his best troops? Little did he know, the Greeks' discipline and terrain mastery were only part of the equation. Their resolve, their absolute refusal to yield, was equally crucial. Day 2, grinding down, resistance night fell, bringing little rest for either side. The Greeks cleaned their weapons, tended to their wounded, and ate in silence. They knew tomorrow would bring renewed fury. Meanwhile, Xerxes stewed in frustration. His best troops had been humbled by a fraction of their number. How was this possible? At dawn, the Persians returned, this time in larger, tighter formation. Assyrian, Egyptians, Bactrians all poured into the narrow defile. Again, Then, the Greeks met them head-on. Again, the Phalanx proved impenetrable. Hour after hour, the pattern repeated. Persian charges met by disciplined Greek resistance. Casualties mounted, but the Greek line held firm. By midday, desperation crept into Persian ranks. Morale flagged. Even Xerxes, watching from his hilltop throne, must have felt doubt creeping in. How could so few hold out against so many? Little did he know, doom was about to strike, not for the Greeks, but for their position. That evening, a traitor named Ephialtes approached the Persian camp. He revealed a secret mountain path that bypassed the hot gates entirely. For the Greeks, this spelled disaster. With their rear exposed, their position became untenable. The stage was set for the final act. Ephialtes' name has gone down in infamy as synonymous with treachery. Yet, his motives remain unclear. Was he driven by greed, promised riches by Xerxes, or was he simply opportunistic, seeing a chance to curry favor with the invaders? Whatever the reason, his betrayal underscores the human element of warfare, the frailty of trust, the fragility of alliances. Without him, the Greeks might have held out longer, perhaps forcing Xerxes to reconsider his campaign altogether. Day 3, the last stand. When news of the betrayal reached Leonidas, he knew the end was near. Most of the Greek forces retreated, carrying word of the Persian advance south. Only the Spartans, along with their loyal Thespian allies and a handful of others, remained. Together, they prepared for death. At dawn, the Persians attacked from both sides. The immortals descended from the mountains, while fresh waves assaulted the front. Surrounded and vastly outnumbered, the remaining defenders fought with desperate courage. Leonidas himself led the charge, falling early but inspiring his men to keep fighting. The Spartans rallied around their fallen king, refusing to yield. In the end, every man who stayed behind perished, but their sacrifice bought precious time. The Persians, though victorious, suffered heavy losses and delayed progress. Meanwhile, the retreating Greeks regrouped, setting the stage for future battles at Salamis and Plataea, battles that would ultimately save Greece from conquest. Think about the final moments of those brave warriors. Exhausted, wounded, surrounded on all sides, they still refused to give up. Every thrust of their spears, every swing of their swords carried the weight of their conviction. They fought not just for themselves, but for everyone back home, for mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors. They fought for the idea that freedom is worth defending, even at the cost of everything. Their deaths were not in vain. Though Thermopylae fell, the spirit of resistance lived on. News of their sacrifice spread throughout Greece, igniting a firestorm of defiance. When the Persians finally reached Athens, they found a city abandoned but far from defeated. The Greeks regrouped, rebuilt, and struck back with devastating effect. So why does Thermopylae matter? Because it's more than a battle, it's a symbol, a reminder that courage, unity, and sacrifice can defy even the greatest odds. Though the Spartans fell, their stand galvanized Greece, proving that freedom was worth fighting for, even against an empire. Today, Thermopylae inspires us to stand firm in the face of adversity, to protect what matters most, and to remember that legends aren't born, they're forged in moments of extraordinary bravery. And that's the story of how 300 Spartans changed history forever. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.